benefiting from the oil and gas sector. It's clearly going to be a very tough job to pull them out of that idea where they've been enjoying the majority of the wealth of the country at their own comfort, while the rest of the 170 million people are standing aside. I'll pause now.
Thank you very, very much, Ike, for that very detailed and very incisive contribution. I'll go to Mr. Akim Oyewale, and I will say that you should also please share your preliminary perspectives on this topic for about 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I would like to stand on existing protocols as well. On my way to this session this morning, I picked up a copy of Business Day, and I was just faced with the headline that says Nigeria has joined a group of five fragile OPEC states. You know, I mean, we have states like Algeria, Iraq, Libya, and Venezuela. That's the front page report of Business Day of today. And I said to myself, I mean, there can be no better way to start a conversation on diversification of Nigerian revenue than what Business Day has done today. I think, I mean, like the moderator has said, Nigeria shouldn't be treated like an oil company. But what we've done in the last few years since our independence has been nothing short of that. I mean, the paper presenter told us about what happened regarding Malaysia coming here to pick up palm fronds years back, and now Nigeria is importing palm oil from Malaysia. That is so sorry. It shouldn't be happening. I would like to say that revenue diversification improves revenue stability of any institution that actually does it. And in Nigeria, we've not been able to do that so well. What we see whenever we have changes in government from one government to the other is an abolition of the past policies of government. But I think we should actually stop that. One of the things we should be doing now, especially now that it's staring us in the face the need to diversify our revenue, is to select those very, very good policies of the past government, like the agricultural transformation agenda, and ensure that we keep to it, while we look into other areas of actually diversifying and making sure we get other sources of revenue for the government. The entertainment industry is a key industry in Nigeria that we can invest heavily upon. And if we do so, it's going to really, really bring in so much revenue, not just for the government itself, but also increase the well-being and welfare of Nigerians. Another area that I think has been, we've not done enough is the financial services sector. I mean, I had a conversation with my colleagues here today, and I said to them, you know what, one key area in the financial services sector that we've not been able to do justice to is the insurance sector. That is an area that government, apart from realizing good revenue from it, will also ensure that the industrial nature of Nigeria is actually enhanced. Because if people have confidence in the insurance industry, we can come up with different products that can enhance the sustainability of this country, the reliability of our industries, and also generate revenue for the government. So I will just stop by saying that by the time we are having this kind of conversation in a year's time, 2 years time, we should not be among the league of countries that will be tagged as fragile states. We should stop talking about diversifying our revenue base, but actually work towards diversifying the revenue base. And there are ample opportunities for us to do that in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Akim. That was excellent. If you could pass the microphone all the way down to Modube. Oh, you have one beside you. Okay, you need it for praise. Modube, please share with us for the next 3 minutes, from an asset manager's perspective, you know, what you think would be the key takeaways from this presentation and this topic generally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All protocols duly observed. My views based on what was shared was the fact that those economies with which we were compared had their investments plowed back into their own economies. With Nigeria, you find that most of the investment, large pools, that is, have been by international investors. We need to take the power back, and we need to get Nigerians investing in Nigeria. With what Achiuke had said with respect to tourism with us going around. I recall when I was in university that when we had breaks, we used to drive down to Abraka River Resort and spend the weekend in Abraka. I don't think that you can make that trip now with any sense of seriousness, because you have to confront the roads, you have to confront security. And that comes down to what we're talking about, infrastructure. We have to invest in our roads, we have to invest in security. Also was the fact that was discussed on institutions. Now when you have big money reporting, there is a need, it gets the attention of regulators, and it gets them to rise to the occasion to put enabling policies that will safeguard the investors. We need to come to a place where our money is where our mouth is, so that we stop talking about diversification, growth, development, and start doing something about it that is pragmatic. If we can invest in those areas, taking Nigerian Naira and putting it into those investments in infrastructure, whatnot, and we start becoming beneficiaries of the growth and development, then we can be said to be thinking futuristically. We need to be able to forego current high return in favor of long-term, consistent return, and therein find real investment opportunities and outlets for long-term funds such as the pension funds are supposed to be, rather than chasing returns of today. So again, back to the point, Nigerians must invest in Nigeria. We have the money to do it. Most of us are pushing that money into alternative investments, sometimes outside our jurisdiction, helping other economies to develop. We need to do that for ourselves. Charity begins at home.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Now, I would like to go very quickly to our guest speaker. And really, you gave us a lot of food for thought today. And one of the things that you drew attention to was the total misalignment between contribution to GDP and contribution to government revenues. So you found that sectors like services and agriculture that were delivering the highest percentage were also contributing, incidentally, the lowest in terms of government revenues. Now, just as soon you were to enter this government today as a member of the economic management team, what would you do differently to tackle that specific misalignment? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. There are two aspects to it. One is the contribution of sectors to GDP are now ensuring that if it's on revenue base, you also get a lot more, or you ensure that those sectors that contribute more to GDP are also the sectors in which you also invest in. I made a point, and I started with the definition of economic development. Because if you start from that definition, things are not there. If you take economic development to economic growth, therefore increase in output, you will do some short-term things in which there will be increase in output. When we take economic development as also reducing the incidence of poverty, also reducing the Gini coefficient, the gap between the rich and the poor, and also building what? Institutions. You take a different view. Now, if I'm a member of economic management, I'm not so sure it's the best job to take now. The question that comes to mind is, do I want to do things for the short term or for what? Long term. Now, if I'm to do things for the long term, then what? Short term pain. Our biggest problem is that we're not articulating to Nigeria that there is pain coming. Do you get it? That is not articulated. I made a point also about our currency. That it is better to be having a gradual devaluation than to tell people that all is well, I can defend the currency, where all empirical data tells us it's what? Impossible. Therefore, you're not prepared along that. There are three aspects when it comes to economic management. One, from a monetary perspective, which at least one is issue of the exchange rate, the interest rate, and general what? Prices. The key is how do you get the right balance among those three in ensuring that your goal of economic development is met. So, to answer the question directly, what would I do? The first thing that needs to be done, honestly, is not an economic answer, more of orientation of Nigerians. I think the first thing is that orientation. Nigerians have not been prepared, first of all, for the pain that is coming. So therefore, we ourselves will be the first one that if any decision is taken that will adversely affect all our businesses, we'll be the first one to start what? Protesting. Because we have not what? Been prepared for it. I made the point that there is no way that diversifies without elements of some cost. Therefore, we are taking current revenue, rather than applying it back into the areas that's where they need it, we are deliberately taking it to other areas for which immediately you do not see benefits. So therefore, issue of education comes up. We understand what we are trying to do. Remember, and I think the point has also been made, everybody keeps on describing Nigeria as an oil and gas country. You just say monopoly. It was no. And I think we are not an oil and gas country. Nigeria is far much more diversified. It is government whose revenue comes from that area. Fortunately or unfortunately, government is also the one that is also the enabler. You get it? In order to reach out to the private sector can function. So if government itself is preoccupied, you don't just, I'm making my revenue, for which it doesn't directly impact, we have a bigger problem. So the issue now is, how do we restructure, first of all, the overall reliance of government on this oil and gas? And now bring the oil and gas industry to look like treat like any other industry that we have. Then again, that's what policies am I going to put into place to attack the area of what? Agriculture. I think that one is the first major one. Indonesia was very interested in preparing for this paper. When I said, irrespective of what they do there, the first thing they did was to ensure they have what? Food what? Security. Without food security, they are what? Wasting your time. So, when you talk about economic funding, the position we have now in Nigeria is that there was certainly an alignment between the economic team, you get it? I mean, within the economic team, also those who are in charge of the fiscal areas, you get not just the monetary area, and also Nigerians and labor. We all have to realize that we are all in the same position. That conversation, unfortunately, I just don't see it happening. You get it? Sometimes when you read the papers, everybody expects magic all of a sudden. Mr. Boy cannot solve the problem. You get it? Even if we start doing the right thing today, you will not see the result for at least, I'm sure you have left office before some of the results start coming. And Nigerians patient enough to even understand that we have to go through a serious adjustment. The truth of the matter is, they almost empty what they call last chance saloon in trying to build institutions that will take us. If we miss it again this time, and all of a sudden oil goes back to $80, $90, and as we are Nigerians, we forget completely what we've gone through. I'm sure by the time the next shock turns up, I just hope that in Nigeria for which we will be debating some of the matter. So it's difficult to say, in not honesty, but clearly, the issue about understanding where we are is a problem. Most people don't have a clue exactly the current situation that Nigeria finds itself. Sometimes you listen to me. Because you're in the upper 1% enjoying the largesse of the country, sometimes you have no appreciation of what is. In this case, I can take the issue of it, but I go to my village almost every weekend. And sometimes when you go home and you leave Lagos, you leave the urban areas, you come into stark reality as to what Nigeria really is all about. It's not the hotel and us being here. It's not Nigeria. This is just an aspect of it. So the question therefore is, how do we first of all understand that we need to develop, and that when we talk about growth can easily be engineered. We all know that there are many things you can do to increase output, but for which is not sustainable. But the question is, how do we ensure that all of us appreciate what needs to be done, and are willing to take the necessary sacrifices, not only short term and to ensure that for the long term we are doing fine. Like I said, it's not a direct answer, but I'm quite passionate on this need for me to have a very good understanding of exactly the situation that we find ourselves in. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much. I would like to go to Ike. And, one of the examples that Professor Bibola Olashori threw up in his presentation was that of Chile and the physical discipline. And if there is one lesson I think we need to learn in Nigeria,
also mentioned the fact that even though our company income tax rate is the highest in the world, the average is about 23%, yet in terms of level of compliance and the proportion of the companies that are actually, within the fiscal net, you find out that the actual collection, which is why our tax to GDP rate is still very low. So actual collection is low. He mentioned our VAT rate as well, in terms of actual collection, and even the rate itself, both the rate and the level of compliance are very low. So, if you were a member of the economic team, I'm beginning to enjoy this management team. How would you tackle that particular problem? And what do you think Nigeria ought to do? Thank you.
Thank you. On the issue of fiscal discipline, if you recall, the last Minister of Finance had tried severally to try to convince the governors about the need to set aside money for a rainy day. And this was during the time, if you recall, during the Jonathan administration, we actually recorded oil prices north of $80 a barrel for most of the time of his administration. It was only in the last 12 months that we saw the recent decline. So indeed, over the 6 years he was president, including the time that he did the 1 year finishing of Yarra, Nigeria recorded a real oil boom. The challenge is, where did all that money go? I think the current president is still trying to figure that out himself. We could have saved a lot of money, but you start with the governing document of this country, the Constitution, and the way it's designed, which says all revenue accruable to the Federation must be shared. Hence, the biggest challenge for the president is to have the political will to convince all the governors and all their state assemblies that we should go to that document and change it and put it in a structure that we should save for a rainy day. Because things that they try to do, like the excess crude account or even the sovereign wealth fund, are actually somewhat illegal in the context of the Constitution. Although they have done a little bit in trying to put aside something for a rainy day. Nigeria does indeed operate a very opaque accounting system, that when you try to run through the government budget, the revenue flows and how money has been spent and disbursed, you literally are up running against many dead ends. We find out at African Research, we really can't quite trace where the money is going. But if you just take the budget for 2015, for instance, we had a 4.7 trillion naira budget with a deficit of about 2-3% of GDP. So that means our income is about 3 trillion naira. But wait for a second. Remember, the same budget says that recurrent revenue, recurrent expenditure is 73%. So actually, the total income earned by the federal government this year is going to be spent on recurrent expenditure. Because when they say there's a deficit financing on that 4.7 trillion, it means they are borrowing 1.7 trillion from somewhere, and they're actually going to earn 3 trillion from their share of oil after I've paid for the states and the local government, and the little they get from taxation, which Prince has highlighted how low it is. So that 3 trillion naira of income, they intend to spend it only on themselves as a government. And that means they're sharing that money amongst 2.6 million employees of the federal government and all the others. That underscores how difficult it is to run the country, because there's no money left. If they want to build a road, they go to outside to the banks to borrow money, they issue T-bills, and this is a highly unsustainable way to run a country. And if the government is not able to say the truth to Nigerians and admit that this is the wrong way to do it, then we can't start. What we've had time and time again is that the new people come in and they just see their avenues for, because it's so big, there's avenues for personal aggrandizement, and they just continue their jolly old ways. But in terms of what you can do, there are lots of things you can do. Improving taxation collection is one, and it can be done. I mean, if you think about the commitment of Nigerians to register to vote because they wanted to make sure their votes counted. Many people did register, and we have a lot of information. Today, many Nigerians are compelled to give their BVN, bank verification number, because they need to operate a bank account. So at the last count, I think 20 million people have submitted their BVN data. Registered. In similar vein, when you think about the fragmentation of small businesses and companies in Nigeria that don't pay taxes, there are things you can put in the structure of the law that will force them to pay taxes. We could say, for instance, should you want to buy a piece of land, you must submit appropriate data that shows you have sufficient income to be able to buy that piece of land. But someone will say, yes, just give me your tax clearance certificate. And the guy shows data that shows that he paid 70,000 naira taxes for the last 3 years, but he wants to buy a plot of land costing 70 million naira. There's no place in the world that makes sense. If you have only 70,000 naira of taxation payable to the government, how did you find 70 million naira? So clearly, once you begin to put common sense into the everyday things you do, you'll be able to attract that taxation income. But in trying to do that means that the government will have to step away from control. The biggest thing with government people, they like to control everything. Like they did in the telecom sector, when they diversified, they stepped away from running NITA. But today, the tax income from telecoms is much more than the oil revenue NITA was giving them. So if you want to earn that tax income, you have to continuously step away from running businesses that really belong to the private sector. And I think they can do it if they do have the political will, but it must start from the top.
Absolutely.
Members of the team cannot do anything.
That was excellent. As somebody that I respect a lot likes to say, government has no business in business. So I have another question, and this relates to, and it's something that you mentioned, Hakeem, so I'm going to toss it back to you. You said that there must be continuity in government. You mentioned that what typically happens when there's a change of government in Nigeria is that you throw away the baby with the bathwater. The presumption is that everything the old guys did is bad. And typically, there will be some things that are worth retaining. So specifically, I'm concerned about the agricultural reforms and also the power reforms. I think enough was done in agriculture for the whole of Africa to feel impressed, and now our Minister of Agric is the President of the African Development Bank. The legacy gains from that, how are we going to retain them? And is there a role that the private sector is supposed to play as regards both the agric and the power sector, and sustaining the pace of development so that we don't lose those gains? What can be done? What should be done? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sani. I think, and I agree with you, that part of the key areas that the past government actually did very well were the agric sector and the power reforms. I think on both counts, government should just intensify the legacies that were laid by the past administration in those areas. In the agric sector, I think there's still need for us to have a very, very strong and pragmatic agricultural minister to continue the way Dr. Adishino was able to change the landscape of the agricultural sector. Unfortunately, ideally, you should have been able to build all an institution. But like we know in Nigeria, appointment of ministers is usually political. So what I will enjoin the new government to do is that in appointing a minister for agric, especially, they should still appoint someone that's a professional and someone that can be apolitical as much as possible, and someone that can continue to build upon what was done. So all the chain, that infrastructure chain and the support services that go with it, they need to be fixed. And I was listening yesterday to Kola Masha, who is very, very active in the agricultural space, and he was saying that the farmers in Nigeria do not yet have the best values for their produce because a number of Nigerian items, food products, are banned on the terms that they believed they should have invested. Those agreements should be respected. And that will encourage a lot more public-private sector participation in that space. Especially, we read also from the chairman of the NERC during the course of the week, where he was lamenting about the challenges this sector was facing from the judiciary, where many people just go to the law courts and obtain an injunction as to the ability of the practitioners of the discos to increase the prices. Now, we need to, I don't know how we can do this, but we need to actually call on the judiciary as well. I mean, interpreting and making pronouncements. They should remember that investors have staked their resources, and they should just we know they want to more like support the downtrodden, but we also have to realize that the commercial nature of these investments need to be respected. So trying to just prevent people from getting realistic tariffs for their services might be inimical to the development of the power reform. So I will enjoin the government to please pay a lot of attention on the actual reforms and the power sector reforms and ensure there is continuity. It's going to enhance the diversification we've been talking about. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All the panelists are making such rich contributions. I'm learning a lot and I'm enjoying myself, and I'm sure I'll speak for most of the audience. Modupe, and this will be the last question I will pose personally. After this, I'm going to encourage members of the audience to pose questions, first to the guest speaker, and if you have a question for this particular panelist, that would be welcome as well. So Modupe, one of the sectors that the guest speaker drew our attention to was entertainment. I think the potential for Nigeria to earn revenues from entertainment is massive. I think already we are the, probably unannounced, or we are the entertainment capital of Africa in terms of the movie industry, in terms of our music industry. Now, how can the government, how can we as a people, how can Nigeria, make sure that this sector is properly structured in such a way that it can contribute revenue to government? Of course, there will be the need to support and first develop this. They've got a lot of problems. Copyright protection is one of the major ones. But if that is done, then government can actually begin to follow that pipeline as it were as well. And also tourism. So I'd like you to address both very quickly in the next 2-3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For the entertainment industry, they've been ignored. And I think at the peril of both the private sector as much as the public sector. They've taken their lot in their own hands, and they've driven a lot of the growth that sector has seen. It's been grunt work from the Alaba boys and also the Dumota people as well. Having done that, their major cry has been for protection, primarily from piracy. And so you've seen them move in a bid to again try and protect themselves. They've made a move from just producing CDs and selling in the market to going to the cinema. So, in addition to what they've been able to achieve, I think it's time for the government to take a definitive stand against piracy and come forcefully and vengefully, if I might say, against the pirates. They are known. It's the same thing with every industry. We know the people that are doing these things. It's just the will to pursue them, and of course the legal framework to back up speedy resolution of issues when they're brought to the law courts. So again, it goes back to creation of institutions that are long-lasting, that understand the issues. Many of those entertainment protagonists now are going to the next level of it, where you're seeing them beginning to take a serious view about their investments, particularly with respect to how they structure their own legal exposures. And so you have some of them that have taken it very seriously, and I think the judiciary has to begin to deepen their skills on how to support that industry. With respect to tourism, again, the tourism sector will thrive on infrastructure and security. The minute this can become a destination where I, as a Nigerian, feel free to travel to the north and see Yankari Game Reserve that I was taken to as a child and camp out there for weeks on end or for weekends and things like that, we will not see the local tourism sector grow. I have friends that play golf, and Many of them have ventured to far-flung. I'm told that golfers will brave the elements to get their game of golf, but you find that beyond Osun State, beyond Lagos State and Ogun State, you hardly hear of any other worthy golf course. Of course, there's Abuja. But then again, one thing we pride ourselves on is the land is green. There's so much that can be done with tourism from that perspective, creating oases in different aspects of the country and ensuring that there is access to those areas. Waka now is local, but a lot of their business seems to be going foreign now. So those kinds of innovations need to be given vent and room to grow locally. Nigeria is huge. We have a large population to back it up, and we're the favored destination in Africa now from an economic standpoint. We just need to get tourism right, and we'll become easily the Mecca of Africa.
Thank you so much, Mr. I'm sure you'll all agree with me that the panelists have done excellently well. I will not discharge them yet because they have to take your questions. So at this point, I would like to invite you all, ladies and gentlemen, to please signify if you have a question for the guest speaker first. And if there is no question, when we finish with the questions for the guest speakers, then we'll take questions from panelists. Please, if I recognize you to speak, then you will rise up, introduce yourself, and go ahead and ask. Please, a question, preferably. And if I don't want to take comment, let it be restricted to one, and let it not take more than 1 minute. Thank you. Gentlemen, yes, your hand, please. Please introduce yourself and then go on to your question. Thank you. Forgive me if I should recognize you and I don't have my glasses on.
Thank you, madam. My name is Mayo Watedu, Anchor Insurance. My comment is this. I don't know whether we can achieve diversification if we maintain the current structure, wherein 2% are spending 80% of the income. Because I feel that there is a fundamental imbalance in our structure, and we need to actually attend to that. Because if 2% that constitute the civil servant or the public servant are spending 80% of the income, I don't know. Our facilitator, Prince, mentioned that in Dubai, the government does not even sit down for taxation. They throw themselves into projects. I see the problem of Nigeria like a computer that is malfunctioning. You need to shut it down and reboot again. That is the structure, that is what we have now. Somebody was talking about the economy yesterday. In Western Nigeria, for instance, sorry for me taking
Sorry, sir. Your 1 minute is over.
Okay.
The lecture
was
Thank you.
12 commissioners were managing Western states before, but today we have 136 commissioners. Whether we can continue that, I don't know.
Thank you very much. It goes to the question of fiscal discipline that was discussed, and I really appreciate your contribution. I just want to make sure as many people as possible get a chance to speak. There was a hand in that corner. Yes, please, sir. Then I'll come back to you.
My name is Anaba, Niger Insurance. I want to suggest to the council members that there should be, at the end of this discussion, there should be a communique that should get to the government. But my question is to Prince Olashola. The discussions he had, they are very deep and detailed. Do you not see corruption as one of the areas or problems that is making it difficult for this country to reach that point that you are comparing us with Malaysia? And do you not see corruption as one of the problems? And if you have seen it, what should be the actual solution to it? Thank you.
Thank you. I will take all the questions for Prince so that he can take them all at a go. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Yakubu Kansan Adams, Somali Securities. My question is directed at the chairman of the capital. When we talk perspective, when we talk about issues of revenue diversification, when we don't address the need to boost local consumption. Local consumption in the areas of manufacturing, because everything you highlighted stems from the fact that there's no production creating a strong middle class that will help us improve on the collections of taxes, whether VAT or personal income tax, and also capturing the small businesses. If we don't, the countries that we make reference from, China, Indonesia, they have a very strong middle class. If we don't do things that encourage local production, local manufacturing, how are we going to get that revenue diversification? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll take a question from our special guest, Mrs. Adebuji Onikoyi, the PAMSEC Finance Lagos State, and then I'll come back. I will only take 2 more questions for